Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
The #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatScale.ai.
Oh, wow. You can't see anything. So good. OK. This must be what it feels like during a Google update.
It's true. We've got a really exciting and interesting and hopefully fun and informative talk planned. We're going to be talking all things Google updates, so your big questions. Is SEO dead? Will AI take my job? Help, I think I'm a robot. We're going to try and figure it all out. We're going to look at the past, the present, and the future of Google updates.
Yeah, I wanted to have a gender-neutral welcome message. I think this is pretty good. Hello, friends and enemies. But in general, I think it's nice to have all of you here. So we have a session on Google Updates planned. It's kind of a mix between official information from Google and input from Billie. Billie was kind enough to, I don't know, take the risk and try something. So that's, I think, totally fantastic. My idea behind the session was to kind of give some of the official information and also make sure that there's some more practical information or practical comments along the way as well. So that's kind of where I want to go. And like Billie mentioned, we have a short part where we talk a bit about updates, like how we think about them. And a bunch of you submitted questions, and some of the questions were kind of OK.
Some of them was terrible. I'm not sorry.
No.
Some of them was weird.
Weird. Well, it's like, we're all weird, right? Right? I don't know. How can you do SEO and not be a little bit weird? OK. I feel that way, at least. And we'll go through some of those. And for the more lighthearted questions, we'll have lighthearted answers. And hopefully, it's still kind of a useful session for you. I'm John. I don't know if any of you have heard of me. I work at this company called Google. We do this search engine thing. I've been working for Google since about 2008, I think. When I go on LinkedIn and see all of the people who are using AdSense claim they work for Google as well, and it's like probably like before that, if you want. I've been involved with updates every now and then. Sometimes that means putting a tweet out or putting extra information out. Sometimes that means talking with engineers and the quality people a bit as well. So I try to see the updates from both sides. All right, and next we also have one about Billie.
So just before I introduce myself, there's these weird little symbols. So John is a block of cheese, and I am a dinosaur. They're based on our Twitter emojis, and this so we can see from a distance whose slide is whose. But I'm Billie Geena. I'm the founder of Uptake Agency. I've got 10 years of working on digital projects and 5 years focused on technical SEO. My agency's only 8 weeks old, so a little baby agency.
Wow, so good.
And I've survived and navigated many updates, and I've survived probably even more client meltdowns, so hopefully I can bring a bit of insight from the practical side of the Google updates. So before we delve into it, I love a bit of audience participation. So the first thing is, who's going to the karaoke party tonight? Woo, that's not enough. Come on, we need more people doing karaoke, be there. So a bit more, I need to know who's here in the audience as well. So raise your hand if you're a technical SEO.
Raising your hand is kind of awkward because you can't see anything.
Yeah.
Or we can't
Raise
see
your
anything.
hand.
Scream.
The woo! Okay, it's a good few. It's a good few. What about, button didn't work. Digital PRs and link builders. We know you're different, but you're grouped. A little bit less.
Nobody wants to admit it, I think.
Content. Okay, there's a lot of content. I could see a lot of hands there. Local SEOs. That was brutal. Strategists. Woo. And I know you all really want to know, who does Google love the most?
It's, yeah, I don't know.
We're all Google's favorite child. Just at different times, for different reasons, and Google never likes us all at the same time. But really, I think strategy would be Google's favorite child, because without having strategical input, like, what the hell are we doing? It doesn't make sense. We're running around like headless chickens. So, I'm going to talk about the current state of affairs first. So I'm going to hand back over to you.
Okay. So I thought kind of the categorization of like who does what was kind of interesting, because it also maps to my mental model of how some of Google's updates are. And I know it's like these three categories don't map exactly to everyone here, but they're different things. And I try to think of it a little bit as, like, for content, there are obviously updates that we do around content. I don't know, have you heard of any? Any helpful updates?
No.
No. Helpful content updates, maybe? No?
Don't understand what you're on about.
Well, okay, helpful content update is all about content. Then the core updates are also kind of about the content. They're more about the overall quality of a website, but essentially that maps a lot to the content that you're publishing. Then there are technical updates, which map a little bit more to all of the technical SEOs that were here, or are still here, hopefully. Kind of the work that you all do is also something that we try to reflect in updates when they come out. And technical updates could be something related to speed, page experience, those kind of things where you're really kind of working with the code and trying to understand how can you make this page a little bit better. But another big chunk is also everything around structured data, where it comes to the rich results that are shown in the search results. So implementing all of that, I think, also maps really well to kind of the work that technical SEOs do. I don't think we have anything like internal link building kind of thing, which also maps to what technical SEOs do, but like, who knows? Like, there's always tomorrow for a new update. I don't know. And there's also web spam, where I think it's like, I don't know if we should have checked if there are any spammers in the room, but.
Raise your hand if you're a spammer. Everyone's pointing at Areej, who's like just where we can see. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're outsing you.
I mean, it's something where it's like everyone who's in the industry, they see it happening. And they see people on social media talking about kind of doing shady things where like I wouldn't want to do that with my clients. And these kind of web spam updates, they also happen. So that's kind of the categorization that I have in my head with regards to updates. And I find it kind of helpful because, like, as a next step, when you look at all of this, so if we go one more, we can also use this to kind of reduce the risk of being affected by a Google update. Because that's always something where when I talk with people externally, they're like, oh, this Google update happened and I have no idea what to do. But there are a lot of things that you can actually do ahead of time with regards to these updates that we make, because they're not like, I don't know, they don't fall from the sky randomly and like affect something that nobody has ever heard of. So for example, when it comes to content, There are things that you can do to reduce the shortcuts that you take. Like if you work on content, you know when you're taking shortcuts. When you're working with clients, it's like, oh, it's like, maybe I can make 20 pages instead of 5 pages out of this. Or maybe I can make 20,000 pages instead of 50 pages. And at some point, you're like, well, it's like, you're kind of taking on a lot of risk. And that's the kind of thing where if you want to reduce the risk of being affected by these updates, that's maybe something you could consider before something happens. So really focusing on quality instead of quantity. Technical SEO updates, they also happen. I think technical SEOs are always on top of these things and really fast. If only the engineers also implement things quickly. But essentially, I try to see it as 2 categories of things. On the one hand, there's kind of that category of best practices where every now and then a Google update comes out and talks about kind of these best practices. If you think back, for example, there was HTTPS or mobile friendly, which is kind of like a technical update, but also at the same time, it's something where it's like, well, the ecosystem knows that this is a best practice. So those are the kind of things where if you want to reduce the risk on your side, you could have someone on your team kind of try to understand what are the current best practices that people are not talking about that maybe you should be implementing before Google says, oh, like you should actually really do this. And the other thing that I think is really important, especially for all of the structured data changes, is that you have a CMS or some kind of a process that you can implement structured data really quickly. And if you have a common CMS or a common hosting platform, then oftentimes there are plugins or settings that you can use for that, where like if Google comes out with a new structured data to, I don't know, where you enter your EAT score, or I don't know, like it doesn't exist, don't do it.
No one tell Barry that he just said this, okay, because that'll be published.
If you tell them not to say it, they'll say it. It's like terrible. Oh my gosh. Okay, how could I say this? But anyways, like some new structured data could come out next week. And if, in order to implement that structured data, you basically have to redesign the whole website and work with the engineering team for a year, that seems like a lot of work. And similarly, the structured data could go away. Like the FAQs are basically gone now. How-to, we just announced that they're both gone on mobile and desktop today. These are the kind of things that like you could implement them and then they go away. And if you spent a whole year with an engineering team implementing them, then you're going to be really upset. But these things come and go. So the easier you can make it to implement structured data, the easier you can like jump on and kind of be one of the first people to implement this and try it out, and the less of an issue it is if like Google systems change over time. And web spam, I think we can kind of jump over this one. Basically, it's like don't do spam. I think like if you want to reduce the risk of these things, I think web spam is also an interesting one because a lot of SEOs, I think, have kind of like side projects and they try crazy stuff out to learn about SEO. And that's sometimes where these things come in. And I think, so I added this slide a little bit to be like, well, what if I don't want to like do whatever Google says? And it's like, well, like, the web is still there. Like people can still go to your website, and it's not something that you have to kind of follow. I think the one point that is really important to me, though, is next one, is that if you're trying things out, especially like I mentioned, like pet projects on the side, don't do that for client sites. If you know that you're doing something shady, it's like don't do it for your clients because they have no idea what you're doing, and they'll look at it and be like, oh, my SEO did this thing, and I have no idea what it is. And if they're stuck with that risk for the long run, that's not really cool. And the other, I guess the last part here is that a lot of these updates are really kind of based on what we see in the ecosystem, where we see complaints by people where like, I don't know, there are articles written, it's like, oh, Google is bad because of this, or the web is terrible because of this and that, and like everyone's going on TikTok now, it's like your web pages are useless now. All of these things are kind of changes in the ecosystem that are happening, and they're things that we on Google's side try to react to as well. And it's like if we see like lots of people are complaining about, I don't know, purple font on web pages, then maybe we'll have a purple font update at some point. I don't know. Do we have purple font in the presentation? I hope not. Anyway, with that, it's basically like, it's also up to you to kind of make the web that you want to find, make something that is actually useful, that is not kind of as a poster child of whatever next article comes out where it's like the web is broken or search is dead, SEO is dead, because like look at these terrible examples that we found. And that's something where you can kind of like think ahead and plan ahead for that. And the last thing I have on this, before I run out of breath, is those kind of sites on the side that you have, your test projects where you're trying things out. I think it's very tempting as an SEO to kind of like get into the mindset of like, oh, I always have to be creating websites, and I could be making, I don't know, $10,000 next month if only I could create like 5 new niche sites on, I don't know, golf balls, or I don't know what is in now. But it's something where, kind of like an athlete where you train and then you take a day off every now and then so that your muscles actually regenerate and grow stronger. As an SEO, I think it's also worthwhile to take a break from time to time. And it's like, you don't have to create niche sites 24/7. Like, obviously, if you're like completely driven and you can't sleep and like do whatever you want, but you don't have to.
It's really weird for me to think that as SEOs, our hobby is sometimes SEO. Like, that doesn't happen in any other industry, so.
I don't know about any other industry. It's like, I'm sure rocket scientists are like in their basement building rockets, right?
Surgeons.
Surgeons, yeah, it's like, oh yeah. I like to practice on my kids.
It's got dark. Quick, get away from this. So let's go into a bit more detail on the present, and then we'll start looking at the other stuff. So just key things that you probably all know, but I'm going to say anyway. Algorithms are not one simple thing. It's a balancing act of lots of different algorithms with their own rating systems. So just because you're smashing it in one area, you might not be in another, and that's not always going to reflect because your content's brilliant if your website's unusable. It's like, or vice versa. Sometimes we see weird stuff in search. So I got ahead of myself and basically said this slide, so I'll just go on. So let's talk about the updates that have happened more recently.
Okay.
Core Web Vitals.
Core Web Vitals. I think Core Web Vitals is not my favorite update, but it's one that is kind of easy to talk about because it's this compact thing and it has numbers attached to it, and everyone's like, oh, I can like focus on my scores. From our point of view, one of the things that happened is we moved Core Web Vitals more into a general kind of page experience bucket to make it a little bit clearer that it's like you don't have to hit certain numbers there. And it's not that you have to have like 3 green check marks and then suddenly your site will rank higher. It's just one of the many things that we consider when it comes to search. So that's something where it's like it's tempting as someone who works on technical things, like, oh, you have these scores, and it's like you have to reach this certain threshold, and then you're good. Sometimes you don't have to reach those thresholds, and it's something where I personally, when I look at websites, I use it as a way of recognizing there are severe issues and you need to work on this, and it's something where when I test our documentation for this, because we also do SEO for our documentation, not like crazy SEO, but kind of like the best practices. I test our pages to see if there are any regressions that are happening. So basically, if someone on the CMS side changed something weird and then suddenly everything is broken or super slow. So that's kind of where I see the Core Web Vitals. One change that is coming up, so I think this is pretty much one of the only updates, algorithm updates essentially, that we've pre-announced, and this is like way pre-announced, is that one of the core web vitals will be replaced. So INP, which is interaction to next paint, will replace first input delay, which is like 2 different metrics there, in March 2024. It's like you have a bit of time to prepare for this. The thing to keep in mind with Core Web Vitals is, of course, it takes into account the data that was collected until then. I think like the last 30 days or last 90 days, I'm not sure. So you shouldn't wait until the last day to kind of like fix it. But you have tools already there that you can test your pages and prepare for it, and then it's like, oh, it's like, it looks kind of reasonable. You can just move on. And like I mentioned, Core Web Vitals is just one part of search. And like Billy mentioned, like we have so many different factors that come into search rankings. It's not that you have to have everything perfect.
So helpful content. The thing that's been making us ask, what does helpful mean since August 2022? So for me, helpful content has been really interesting to learn about and identify how it works in different industries. There's loads of examples, by the way, in the Search Quality Rater guidelines. They're not a secret source, so don't read them and be like, I've mastered helpful content. But there are examples. You'll have noticed in the main Google documentation that they're not specific on what helpful means. They can't be, because otherwise that'll be a 300,000 word document, and the only people that will read it is probably in this room. It's us, it's SEOs.
We also have to be careful. So Danny Sullivan is in this room, I think, somewhere, and he wrote most of the documentation for the helpful content.
It's brilliant. Sorry. And now we've got the August update. She's just finished rolling out. We don't know much yet.
The core update.
The big one, though. Raise your hand if you was on holiday when the update hit. It's a fair few.
I thought they never go on holidays, like work 24/7, right? What is
Always
this?
be hustling. So we're going to get a little bit serious now. Everyone, put on your serious face. Okay, Google, play Arms of an Angel by Sarah McLachlan. I were going to sing this, but then I decided if you're going to karaoke tonight, you've got enough to put up with. But we've got some goodbyes to say. Universal Analytics.
Oh, come on.
We love
Like,
you.
We said that was going away a long time.
We hoped you'd backtrack and give it back. Like,
It's not a ranking factor. Come on.
we can hope and we can dream. FAQ schema. Give it back. And then as of today, how-to schema. By the way, who was keeping up with Twitter? Like, obviously you didn't have anything else going on. So. But she's dead now as well. RIP our energy levels.
Aww.
Our hope. Our joy.
Analytics isn't that great. Come on.
You don't know what you've got until it's taken away, and that's... But most of all, RIP Mobile Usability Report. She's not quite gone yet, hanging around until December, I think. But I do have a really big question to actually ask. And it's been floating around my head ever since we decided to do this presentation. John, do you plan on taking anything else we love away?
I don't know. It's like, it's tempting now. Like, these presentations are kind of fun. What do you think? Like, is there anything popular that like we should watch out for?
Knowledge panels are kind of cool at the moment.
Knowledge panels. LSI keywords, how about that? Nobody wants them anymore. Oh my gosh. So sad. Anyway, I think for us, or at least when I look at it with regards to a lot of these features like the FAQs and the how-tos, the kind of the rich results, in the search results, it feels like there's always different phases where in the beginning nobody's actually doing anything with them, and like we're not sure if like it'll actually be useful for people externally and useful for site owners, and then at some point everyone's like, oh my gosh, these FAQ, these are fantastic, like look at all this room I can take up in the search results. And then everyone does that. And from our side, we kind of have to balance making things that are interesting for site owners and useful for site owners, and making sure that they're also still useful for people who are actually using search, because we care a lot about people who are actually searching, because if nobody searches, like, you wouldn't be optimizing for these rich snippets. So one of the things that I think we try to do is try to find that balance of like showing them enough that it's still useful for people and that site owners see some value of actually implementing them, but maybe not showing them so often that actual users kind of think, oh, the search results are just filled with stars. It's like, I can't see anything. So finding that balance is sometimes hard. Sometimes that also means we have to deprecate things. Sometimes that means we come out with something new. Some of the new things, I'm sure SEOs will be like, oh, this is a terrible idea. And then like Google will try it out. And maybe it was a terrible idea. Maybe it was actually OK. Some things SEOs might say, oh, this is a fantastic idea. And then they implement it all. And then the users of the search results are like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't know, 3D mice everywhere on the search results page, like, save me. So kind of like finding that balance is tricky. And that also means like some of these things come and go. Like we'll always have some sorts of updates.
But their memories will always carry on. Our GIFs aren't working, I'm not singing. So if you're Nemo, you can do it.
Karaoke tonight, OK.
So let's step into Google's future. Again, our GIFs aren't working, so I'm going to reenact this one. Who is SGE? Why is SGE here? Why?
Well, SGE is not here in the UK. It's like, I don't know, is SGE in the room now? So the search generative experience is something that we're trying out. And it's currently, I think, in just 3 countries, in the US, India, and Japan. And it's behind a kind of an opt-in. You have to opt in to actually see this in the search results. And like, we're trying it out. We don't know what it'll end up as. Because if we knew that it was going to be fantastic, we would just do it everywhere all the time. But we kind of have to see how it actually works. We have to figure things out, improve things over time. How that will pan out, I don't know. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll be weird. Maybe it'll be, I don't know, terrible. Who knows? We'll see. I think it's important that as SEOs, you also give us feedback on this. So on the one hand, the teams definitely collect feedback from actual users who are using this and are like, oh, this is so confusing. But also from SEOs and site owners, it's really important for us to get feedback from you all, where if you look at this and you're like, oh, this is terrible, and it's like you like taking a sentence from my website and showing it in the search results. It's like, how could you? That's something where it's like, tell us what the problem is. And you can do that directly in the tool. You can also do that on social media if you want to be kind of like really loud and annoying. It's like, that's fine. We also forward those on. But all of this feedback, I think, is really important because I don't know what the future of search will be. And all of these large language models, I think, are really compelling. They do a lot of really interesting things. So maybe some amount of this will be in the search results, but how it'll be, it's like, I don't know. And we will have to try things out.
So you might have seen on social media, we put out a form asking for questions, and some of you sent questions and put your name there. Some of them were left anonymous. We've included them, a mix of both. So the first question comes from Alice Rowan, who spoke here earlier and she smashed it. So how have the increase in AI content and increasing prioritization of generative search impacted the helpful content updates from 2022?
That's a long question, yeah.
So the way I see it is AI content can be good if it's done right. I've been doing a bit of an experiment because I'm the worst person and I will create a niche site if a niche site person does something to cross me. I will join their industry.
So always hustling? It's like, what is this? You told us not to.
I don't live by what I say.
I wish I could do that.
But I've been testing content. I've had like a real professional content writer write some bits for me. I've had AI write some bits for me. I've had AI and the content writer work together. And I've got a real mixed result. So obviously the content writer creates the best content. That's ranking the best. But I'm getting really close, nearly the same results from them working together. And it's about trying to add in experience and humanize the content. And it can work out. It doesn't work out in every case. But I think there's something real interesting that's going to happen at some point, because all this AI content's using the same data sets, essentially. So I think we're going to be very busy one day in the future when all of our content is competing against very similar content. So the content people in the room, there were a lot of you. I think you're going to be very, very busy at some point. Do you have anything you'd like to say on this one?
I think like content people being very busy, that sounds like a good thing. It's like everyone's like, oh, AI will kill our jobs. And personally, I think that would be great. It's like if I could just have my AI do my job and like I get paid anyways, like what is wrong with that? Anyway, I think with the question, it's also a mix of different topics which kind of come together. So there's the AI content side and also the search generative experience side. And from my point of view, those are kind of different things. I think the interesting part with AI content is that on the one hand, it's used to kind of like generate a new answer. And on the other hand, people use similar systems to generate new content. And like how that pans out, I don't know. We'll see.
This one's for you. It's from Anonymous. Why does content that doesn't meet the helpful content guidelines rank over content that does meet it?
I don't know. Like, I don't think this author has any EAT. So maybe we should just ignore this question. What do you think? No. Okay. I get this question all the time, not specifically with the helpful content guidelines, but essentially since I joined Google, you see this question where it's like, someone is ranking above me and they're doing one thing really bad, and it's like, can't you just delete their website from the search results? It's like, they have 5 typos on the homepage. It's like, how could they? Surely Google can recognize typos and just like demote this website from search. And luckily, for them, like not the people who are complaining, we look at a lot of different things when it comes to search, and you can do one thing really well, and maybe you do another thing kind of bad, and our systems try to look at the bigger picture. And especially with some of the more technical things, our systems try to look at kind of like, what would a user see if they came across this site? And it might be that, oh, they have a bunch of hidden text on the page, but if our systems can recognize there's hidden text here and just ignore it, then it's like, for users, that's actually fine. Like, we could still show that in the search results in the first position, and SEOs might look at it and be like, oh my gosh, they're using hidden text. How could Google show this? But from our point of view, it's like, well, that hidden text isn't doing anything in their favor, and they're ranking because of all of the rest that they're doing. So I think from a practical point of view, that also means like you shouldn't get hung up on like one specific thing and like super focus on that one thing. You should look at the bigger picture when it comes to your website. And we've been talking a lot more about this recently, kind of making human-first content instead of like search engine focused content. And I think that kind of maps to that bigger picture where you're actually creating something useful and valuable for the web. And maybe you're not getting all of the technical details right. And maybe you made a mistake or have a typo on your homepage. It's like, that happens, but search should still be able to take into account that bigger picture. And maybe this page is still very relevant to a user.
So is digital PR link spam?
I feel I shouldn't answer this because otherwise I might not make it home alive.
There wasn't many PRs in the audience. You'll be fine.
Well, they didn't want to admit it, so it's like, it's...
Secret, they're going to get you.
No.
You don't want to answer? Okay.
No, I think a lot of digital PR is really fantastic. Like creating something fantastic that's aligned with the rest of your website, that is interesting for a broader audience. It's like, I think that's fantastic. Obviously, you can do lots of weird things as well and call it digital PR, but I think the general idea of you creating something fantastic and informing like news sites or newspapers or anyone about that, and they say, oh, this is really cool, and they link to your site. And it's like, I don't know. Personally, I think that's fine.
So this is the big one. Can't Google pause the updates when the holidays are happening?
We don't know which holidays you care about. Like,
All
do you
of
have a
them.
date?
June 17th, I'd like.
June 17th. OK, we'll have to like put that on a list. I think the tricky part is our updates take a long time sometimes to roll out. They take a lot of time to prepare. And it's something where we can't just say, like, oh, we will just take this 5-week window in the summer and we'll put all the updates there. I don't see that being practical. So sometimes they just have to roll out at different times. And sometimes people are on holiday. It's like sometimes they're also a little bit overlapping. That kind of happens. We do try to take into account like the bigger updates as they happen with regards to planning so that we don't be like, oh, it's like here are 17 updates that happen on Monday. And it's like, welcome to the week. We try to avoid that. But at the same time, there's also I think the bigger issue in that our engineers work really hard on some of these quality updates to improve the quality of the search results. And essentially, they're standing there and saying, like, we could today improve the experience of users of Google search significantly if we just push this button today. And like, it's hard to be there and be like, well, OK, we should keep the lower quality search results live first because like we want to plan around these holidays. It's like, oh, it's going to suck for the people who are on holiday, but yeah. So it's something where we try to take it into account, but we can't like guarantee that we won't ever hit any holidays or that we won't ever have any overlapping updates. So
this one's about the August update. This is from Sanjay Nagpal. How is this update going to update? How is this update going to impact the rankings?
How?
How?
Very severely. I don't know. No. I don't know. Like looking on Twitter, it feels like people are not like super stressed about this update, which is also kind of fine. I think the important part to keep in mind with all of these updates is that some sites will go up and some sites will go down. And it's not that we're pushing all sites down or that, oh my gosh, voices. It's not that we're pushing all sites down or doing anything like that. And I think kind of the part that some sites go up, that's often lost in social media because you go on social media to complain to Google and it's like, why is not my site going up? Or why did my site go down? So from that point of view, it's like some go up, some go down. It's kind of like the balance that we have there. And this update was a core update. We have a bunch of documentation around core updates. Core updates are more kind of like in the core of our ranking systems. We've worked really hard to try to improve the quality of the documentation on these updates and ranking systems as well.
It's not fair.
It's
Why?
not fair. What? That some sites go up and some sites go down?
Not fair.
When would it be fair?
It's not fair.
It's not fair. Yeah.
It's not.
I don't know. I mean, it's like we try to improve the quality of the search results, and that means like some go up and some go down. It's like you just have to make sure that your site is the one that goes up, I guess.
Really is
It's
well.
so easy.
It is fair, really, because it wouldn't be fair if one site just always ranked number one forever, just for no reason.
Wikipedia? Or?
Oh, it's Wikipedia.
Actually, I haven't heard about Wikipedia ranking first for a while now, so maybe their complaint, maybe they submitted this.
If you submitted this question, raise your hand. I've got a laser pointer. I will point you out.
I don't.
No.
I yeah, everyone's happy. I'm pretty sure.
Cool. I'm glad you guys get it. Because it is fair-ish.
I don't know like how you would qualify if it's fair or not. I think our systems, we do work hard to make sure that our ranking systems update in a way that we have them documented in a way that makes sense and is kind of fair. But sometimes we don't get everything right. So it's like in the cases where we don't get everything right, it's like also let us know.
Don't worry, I will. So, SGE, we've talked about it already, but like, what's planned for the future? When is it going to roll out here in the UK? Like, give us all the deets.
It's going to launch in. I don't know. So sorry. So we just rolled out in India and in Japan. I think in India in English and Hindi, in Japan and Japanese. So one approach could be that all of you just learn Japanese.
Seems easy.
It seems reasonable, right? They don't seem to buy it. I don't know when it will roll out. So a lot of these changes around SGE are still, I would say, like really experimental, and that we're working on trying different things out, and also with different countries. That's something where, on the one hand, there's a lot of technical work involved because you can't just take kind of the US English model and apply it to British model, because like the language is kind of different, and I imagine there's a lot of work involved in making sure that the answers are actually kind of like understandable. But I honestly don't know. I do see that the team works really quickly, so they've tried different formats of how links are shown, references are shown, things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're really fast. I also wouldn't be surprised if it takes a significant amount of time. So I don't know.
What I'm hearing is it depends. Like,
well, I don't know what it would depend on, because it's not me.
It's depending on something, and you just.
We should ask Sundar. Maybe Sundar knows.
So this question came from Richard Via. After SGE was rolled out, for many of our keywords, we are seeing keyword stuffed pages dominating the top positions of the SERP. Why?
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 So I think, first of all, these two things are very likely unrelated. So everything around SGE is something that is rolled out in the US, US, India, and Japan, and only accessible for people who actually opt in and kind of turn that feature on. So that would be something where I would expect there wouldn't be any ranking change related to that. So my feeling is you're kind of running into that situation that I mentioned before. It's like, oh, my competitor is ranking above me and they're keyword stuffing. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, probably they're not ranking because of the keyword stuffing, but despite of the keyword stuffing. And maybe they're doing other things really well, and things that you could be doing differently.
So, this one's for me.
Okay,
Exciting.
so should I work on a site before or during updates? Well, I guess like before updates, it's like it's always before updates. So of course you should work on your site before updates because like who knows what happens tomorrow. But what about during updates? So Google says we're starting a rollout of the new purple font core ranking update.
This is really important, by the way. Pay attention. Purple font update.
And it's going to take several weeks for it to roll out. Like, should you work on your website during that time, or do you have to wait to see, it's like, is everything okay?
So there's something like 2,000 updates every year from Google, just like little ones. The big ones they tell us about. So there's always something going on. It'd be an absolute waste of time to just wait for every update to happen. We know this. And when an update is happening, it's using data it could be weeks, it could be months old. Like it's not yesterday's data that's looked at during an update. So it's pointless holding off. You should absolutely be consistently making an effort to complete your SEO work. And anyone who tells you different is wrong.
Okay.
So following on from what I've just said, which data does an update use and how far back does that go?
It depends. I can finally use that. So good. It depends on the update. Some updates are more kind of technically focused on the current state of a website. And for that, like there's this variable time of Google crawling and indexing the pages on your website. So that's something which could be like a lot of data from yesterday and a lot of data from the last, I don't know, couple of weeks. Some of the updates do take into account a longer period of time, and those are the kind of, I'd say the ones where we don't really have a fixed period of time where we say this is the time frame that is being taken into account. And that also kind of maps to, I think, a further question that we have which is kind of like, so if I make a change now, when will I see that effect? It's like there is no fixed timeline there. It can be that you make a change now and then the quality algorithms will pick it up in a couple of weeks. It could be that it takes a half a year, maybe even a bit longer for the kind of longer running quality updates or other systems to pick up the data and understand how it should treat your site appropriately in the search results. I had a technical issue right before the update happened. Did I mess up? Am I screwed?
Yes.
What?
No, obviously not. We've just
Poor
said
people.
this, like, it depends on the issue. Like, obviously, if you've decided to no index, no follow every single link on your website, you've added every single page into the robots.txt, you've broken everything, then yeah, you're screwed. But it's a sliding scale. Like, realistically, if you're an SEO, you're not going to do that. And the data's old. Like, it could be months old, could be weeks old, whatever. So it's very unlikely one technical issue is going to mess something up in a core update. So calm down, you're fine. It'll all be okay.
I think it's also worth adding that a lot of the kind of quality-related updates, they're kind of independent from technical issues. So if there's something like, I don't know, your site went down yesterday and it's back up again now, it's not that our systems will say, oh, this is a low-quality server, and like they can't even bother to pay the hosting bills properly. But rather they'll be like, oh, it's like something went wrong and it's working now. It's like, this is fine. It'll all continue. So especially technical issues, if they happen with regards to quality updates, that's not something I would worry about. And the time frame as well, like you mentioned.
Are you doing more updates nowadays?
More updates. I don't know. I think it's hard to quantify. Obviously, on the How Search Works website, we have something like we did so many thousand updates last year or the year before. But like usually, what people care about are these bigger updates that are announced. And I don't know if like anyone is really counting them on a yearly basis and saying, oh, they're more or they're less. One thing we are doing a lot more now, though, is thanks to Danny Sullivan, kind of talking about these updates a lot more and trying to document them, trying to also go away from us like, oh, there's just this random update that happened to actually this is our ranking system, this is what we think about within this system, and there are updates to this system that happen. And that can perhaps look like, oh, Google is doing more updates, but actually it's like Google is just talking a lot more about the bigger updates that are happening, because we also see the value of talking about what we're thinking, because we see that all of you are like, oh, I want to kind of be kind of in the right place for Google, be in the right place for in the search results. And if we tell you, it's like, oh, our systems are looking for this kind of content, then you might be like, oh, well, actually this makes sense, and I can do it, and I want to do it, and then you actually go off and do that. So it's kind of like working together with the whole ecosystem. So it's not more updates, it's perhaps a little bit more information about updates.
So this is the big one that we're all concerned about. The algorithm is learning by itself and is rolling out unconfirmed updates. Official updates are Google understanding what it has done, packaging it up and announcing it to the masses. True? Yeah?
I don't know. So basically, like there's an AI at Google, and it's like constantly updating the search results, and nobody knows what is happening. And then every now and then, some Google engineer will be like, oh, I figured it out. And then we write about it. I don't see that happening. I mean, who knows, like behind the scenes, maybe like someone is hiding this magical system from us. But there's a lot of work involved in making an update, in kind of testing an update, getting all of the approvals, kind of all of the long process that's related to these updates, and then documenting them, making sure that they're kind of understandable, that they're reasonable. There's a lot of manual work there, and I don't see like an AI just going like, oh, well, I can figure all of this out. And the other thing that I sometimes see with regards to questions like this, where it's like, oh, Google is just using, I don't know, clicks or something like that, is that a lot of these metrics are like, they sound reasonable at first glance, but if a system kind of focuses on one specific metric, then suddenly the search results are like super clickbaity and not useful at all. And it's something where like the system, if it were to be running automatically on its own, it would kind of like hyper-focus on one specific aspect, and then like the search results would be really weird and skewed. So having that human touch and kind of the human mindset involved there to make sure that the search results are actually reasonable and not just focused on one particular metric or like a handful of particular metrics, I think that's really important.
We all know Google's become sentient. John's a hologram. I went to high-five him earlier and whacked Kelvin in the face, so whatever. The big one, is SGE going to put me out of work?
I think that would be great. Like I mentioned, it's like, it's fine if it still sends me my paycheck, but if it like takes me, does all my work, answers my email, writes all the content, it's like, I think that would be fine. I don't know about you all, but it's like, that's just me. But I don't see that happening. It's like interacting with all of these large language models and the AI systems is like, there's just so many weird things in there.
I think another big thing to think about is if we look back again, how much things have changed in the last 10 years. So if you cast your mind back, the big thing was Google Glass. That was going to change absolutely everything. Everyone's going to wear glasses. They're going to be able to just search on the go. And I can tell you, Google Glass benefits my life every single day.
Metaverse, I'm sure, is coming next, right? Yeah. It's like we'll go into the metaverse, and SGE will be my personal mentor. And any question that I think of, which I don't even have to voice, it's like it gives me an answer and tells me what to do.
We'll see what happens, but it's not going to put us out of work. It's just going to adapt how we work. Because SEO is always adapting anyway, so it's going to be fun, it's going to be interesting. We don't need to all rush to the job centre at once. So we're fine. So we're running, we've only got 6 minutes left. So instead of going through all the client questions that we've talked about, I'd like to kind of just go through and reassure you all that we're all living the same shared horrors, whether it's agency side and you're working with clients or stakeholders, we're all having the same conversations. And I'm hoping this will reassure you a little bit. So we'll just fly through this a tiny bit, but when there's an update, there's some people that really want you to explain everything. There's some clients that don't care, they don't know, they just vibe in. There's going to be people that are going to be like, nothing's happened, you told us there were an update. I heard her say that. That's her. So it's a sliding scale, what we see.
I mean, it can be fine, like if you don't see any changes for your update with some of these updates. Like if a web spam update rolls out and you're like, oh, my site didn't get hit, and it's like,
cool.
Maybe that's okay, you know.
It's fine. And a big question that I know I've seen you answer 1,000,003 times is how will this particular change actually improve our rankings and things like that? We don't know. We'll see what happens as it happens. And the people that are the worst affected tend to be the loudest. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable question for people to ask as well, because you're billing someone for the work that you're doing, or someone is doing to improve the site with regards to these guidelines that you heard. And it's like, is this enough, or do I have to pay twice as much, or is like half as much also enough? And unfortunately, there's no way to know ahead of time. But it's something where I think all of your experience also plays a role, where when you look at it and you're like, this still looks like spam, then probably it's not enough.
And they're always going to be concerned about their competitors. I've had clients ask some wild stuff about the other people they're ranking for, like, what happens if I just buy a bunch of dodgy links for Steve down the road? Will that get his website taken off the internet? And then Bob did that. I'm changing the names.
So buying links for your website or against your competitor?
Against your competitor.
I mean, that's always the big question. It's like,
there's snake oil, there's all sorts. People do weird stuff.
And SEO for Wix, it's like asking, why do they insist on punishing us? I think it might be in your username. No, just kidding. I think Wix has been doing fantastic stuff with regards to SEO.
You've got to say that, because we know Crystal's here somewhere. She'll tell
Oh my
us.
gosh, she's going to kill me.
I'm going to just slide past that one. It's too traumatizing. But the good thing is we know we all have that secret phone number where we can phone Google and say, hey, can you fix this? Right?
Well, I mean, you can send me stuff, and I might forward it on to the team, but I don't have this green button to press like you have there, where I can be like, oh, it's like this site goes up 5 clicks and this site goes down. So feedback for any change that we make is always really welcome, but don't assume that we will just like tweak things and make your site go up.
So if we want to stay up to date on the different updates, how?
How to stay updated? I think, so recently we started using the search status dashboard, which is a separate website that you can also find on search, which needs to do some SEO. But anyway, you can find that site. We put the bigger updates there when they start rolling out and when they finish rolling out. There's an RSS feed. You can subscribe to that. You can subscribe, kind of like push that into email or push that into whatever chat system that you use internally. We also have a blog where we publish essentially about bigger updates. We also have social channel, like on Twitter, where we talk about some of these updates. I know some of you don't like Twitter anymore, and like it's kind of traumatizing, I think, but we try to put everything in our blog as well now. And of course, Barry Schwartz. It's like, is Barry Schwartz here? Like,
I feel like Wix have a cutout of him if he's not. So
oh, okay.
that could
So
be a
good.
lie. They did last time.
No, I think Barry is fantastic. He picks up on a lot of things that are happening in the industry. Obviously, there's also a lot of noise in there, but it's like he spots a lot of different trends. It's always useful. Cool. So I just have a final set of small takeaways for this. Most of this I think we've talked about. I think first of all, with regards to any update, like there's no value in panicking when an update rolls out because it's like taking into account stuff that's already happened for a longer period of time. It's not you have to like jump into your server and suddenly change all of your spammy content into helpful content. Like you can't do that. And our systems wouldn't reflect that quickly either. When it comes to technical trends, these are things that you can stay on touch with ahead of time as well, where it's like you see like what is happening with regards to speed and accessibility, and these are things that you can kind of be ahead of the updates. With regards to other technical updates like structured data, like prepare your infrastructure, know how to make changes. Don't be surprised if there's a new structured data type or if one structured data type goes away. Make it so that it's a non-issue for you, that you can just like enter the right fields and then you're done. With regards to content quality, you kind of have to be critical about what you put out, and I think a lot of you understand kind of what to watch out for, but especially if you're working with clients and they're like, oh, I need 10,000 pages, and you're like, well, I can only do 200, then it's like at some point you have to kind of be clear about those risks. Stay informed, I mentioned that, and of course you have to make memes when it comes to updates, because I send out an internal newsletter once a month. I do a long meeting with a lot of people that are active in search about what is happening around Google search internally and externally, and I include a lot of your memes. So if I don't have memes to include, it's kind of an awkward newsletter.
I'm going to build on that. When we first started preparing this presentation, John sent me a Word document of memes. It was like 8 pages. It was just like screenshots from Twitter, and it was like, can we use these?
Yeah.
And then they slowly not got used. I feel sad now.
Yeah. I mean, Billy did the whole deck. It was fantastic, I think.
Whoop, whoop.
Cool. I think that's it.
We've been John and Billie. Ask us stuff we're about, or there's our Twitter handles if you use Twitter. If you
It's
don't,
called X now.
X, I don't like it. But yeah, we're done. We made it. We survived Thursday. Well done, everyone. Woo!
Thank you so much. Thank you, Billie and John. Fantastic. Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.